Entry-level mining information. Why so many new starters fail. Welcome to Australian Mining for New Starters, and today we're going to have a quick chat about why there's a high turnover of new starters in the mining industry. Now, I got asked this question on the last video that I did from Robert, who's starting as a nipper, and just wanted to know why there was such a high turnover of new starters in Hard Rock Underground. The easiest way to do this is just to go into what happens when you get to site and run through the process of what goes on, and then that way you can pick out where things can go wrong, and I can give examples of how things are going to go wrong. First of all, this isn't having a go at anybody. This is just strictly the way it is. It's all about knowing the system. If you know the system, it gives you a huge advantage and you understand what's going on. If you go in as a nipper, so if we look at pay rates and rosters, you can see that a nipper will make probably $400 to $500 a day starting off, as well as a truck driver or a driller's offsider. Service crew get paid slightly more at the moment. They're up to $550 plus a day. Now, when you go to site, you'll and this is the mining career checklist, so you can have a quick read of that while I'm talking about this. You end up doing a surface induction, and that'll be done normally by a person that's got to do with safety and training on the surface, so they often run the mines rescue program as well and have something to do with the on-site medical. Then once you've done the surface induction, you'll go and do the underground induction. That'll be done with safety and training. Now, the safety and training people, while all very well-meaning and nice, there's the thing that you need to know about safety and training is that their pay fits in around this mark here. So the way underground works, it's a pretty strict pecking order, but it works on money. So the higher the paid job, the more respect and the more knowledge you need to do the job. Now, with safety and training, you get a lot of people that end up doing 2 to 5 years, and they sort of get to service crew and they can't get any higher, so they go and get their Cert 4 in training and their Certificate 4 in OH&S, and they go into safety and training, and they do a good job doing what they have to do. But the point is that their knowledge of some of the more advanced jobs can be very limited. So when you're going to the inductions and through the inductions, what the phrase you'll often hear is, oh, you'll learn that down the hole. Yeah, you'll get told that a lot from safety and training. Of course, there'll be an exception to the rule. There'll be somebody on a mine site somewhere running around with a shift boss's ticket in safety and training, and with 20 years experience on all the gear. Now, if you get somebody like that teaching you in safety and training, think yourself very lucky, because those sort of people are few and far between. Most people in safety and training had a couple of years down the hole, and then they've moved sideways into this job because it's a nice job. It's a good job. It's a day shift job. You're part of management. You get your own ute normally to drive around in. So there's a lot of advantages to being safety and training. But just remember that, those people have moved sideways. They're not, moving up. So if you ask them a lot of questions about subjects that they don't really know, then that can cause you a lot of grief. And that's one of the things that happens first, is that even though they tell you that there's no such thing as a stupid question, if you go into safety and training and you do the tickets and the procedures and you spend 3 days asking a bunch of questions, then the guy or the person from safety and training is liable to walk around and tell everybody how all you want to do is ask a lot of questions, and then they leave that open to how smart you're going to be if you're just not going to get it straight off. Now, the other thing that you've got to remember with all this is too, because they're dealing with so much failure on a day-to-day basis, they're looking for people that are going to pull the pin really quickly so they can get it out of the way. One of the things that they do is they shove everybody in with the shift boss on one of the first days that they're there to take them down the hole, just to make sure that they know that they're not going to freak out down there, and then they start their training after that. Back in the day, they used to do it the other way around. They used to spend thousands on wages putting people through inductions and tickets and all that sort of stuff, and then take them down the hole only to watch them freak out. Now, you get shoved in with the shift boss or our shift boss on the sort of your first or your second day, just to make sure that nothing's going to happen down there. Once you've done that, and once you've done your tickets and your procedures and all that sort of stuff with safety and training, you'll get shoved with a buddy down the hole. Now, when you do all that, the important thing to realise is that you're only going to be as good as your buddy, and you're only going to have as much mining knowledge as your buddy's got. So if you go in and your buddy has only just been shown by somebody that has only been shown in the last 3 months and wasn't very sure of it, then the training that's being passed on to you might be incomplete or not accurate at all. And I've seen situations that's led to people getting the sack or tramped straight away, or a window seat, they like to call it, getting the sack, especially on the fly and fly out sites around Perth. It's just the way it is, unfortunately. Yeah, I've seen situations where buddies haven't liked people coming in, and, there's been conflict happen there and the person's just left. There's a lot of reason that there can be turnover within the hard rock underground industry. And the other thing that happens too is in all the inductions and all the stuff that safety and training does with you upstairs, they don't really tell you about the time constraints and the fact that everybody's going to be watching you, and that it's imperative that you use the safety equipment all the time, and that you're not going to get too many chances at all. They try and keep everything as positive as possible because, again, they're used to the high turnover, and so they're trying to nullify that to a certain extent. And they've done that in places, or they're trying to do that in places, by introducing training courses before you get to site. So a lot of places in Perth have got training rooms and all that sort of stuff, but again, that's only as effective as the person doing the training. If the person doing your training's only had a couple of years experience and then they've moved sideways, then the training's going to be reasonable, but it's not going to be like you're getting it from somebody that's had 20 years plus experience down the hole. And there's a reason for that. Those sort of people aren't around very often, and those sort of people tend to fall into the shift boss, foreman, jumbo operator category. And when you can earn $1,000 a day to $2,000 a day doing that, why would you want to accept a $120,000 a year safety and training job? And it goes down to the simple stuff like that, and knowing simple stuff like that. And again, that's not a slight on anybody that does safety and training stuff, because like I said, you get your own vehicle, you run your own shop mostly, and as long as everybody's doing the right thing, it can be a fairly cruisy job. I mean, if somebody really hurts themselves and it all goes sideways, then yeah, it's not the job that you really want on the mine site. But it's like anything else, it swings and roundabouts. When you get to site, you have got a short amount of time to find your feet. And if you don't find your feet in that time, then they're going to move you on. And again, it won't just be one person making the decision. They'll ask about, the safety and training person will get asked, what was the person like in the training? Did they ask a lot of questions? Were they any good? What did you think? Then you'll get asked senior member of crew, are they having a go? Do you think do you think they're going to make it? Should we invest any more time in them? And, if they think that the decision is that you're not picking it up quick enough, or you're not getting it, then they'll just call you into the office and say, look, it's not working out, thanks very much, but see you later. And that happens a real lot. That's why there's just so many jobs around. And if you type underground into Seek, you'll see all the jobs come up, and they're just everywhere, and it's all across Australia. It's not just here in WA. They want people everywhere. Yeah, and Barminco, Pit and Portal, Norton Gold, everybody's looking all around the place. That's in Queensland. Yeah, lots of stuff everywhere. The reason that they've got so much turnover, or the reason that there's so many jobs here, is because of all the turnover. And you can have a look at the mining job hunts that I've been doing, and I'll do one next week, but you can go back, and these ones start, I think the first one that I did here was just before December 2020. And it's the same jobs, it's the same companies, it's the same people looking for the next new starter, because a few of them have worked out, but most of them have failed. And again, the reason that people have failed is because they're put into a situation where they make it very hard to succeed. And that was one of the reasons why we wrote the training back in the day, the courses, the DIY, the Intro to Underground Mining. And if you have a look at one of these packages, and I'll just open it up as the mining coach, it goes into everything that you're going to learn in the induction, and also what they're going to teach you about in the procedures, but it also goes into what your buddy should be teaching you down the hole as well. And that was the big thing that we thought as shift bosses was missing out of the equation, is that if you leave it up to the person that they get as the buddy, the whole thing can be really, very random. You get a good result sometimes, you get a very poor result the other times. So we wanted to put something together where you get exactly the same sort of information that the buddy should be telling you down the hole. And And, you know, I had a guy that did the course a couple of years ago, got a job with one of the big contractors. He got to site, and the nipper that was supposed to be showing him the job had only been in the job a month, and the person that showed them the job had just got the sack. And the nipper had decided, you know, the first thing out of her mouth to him was that I can't do this, I'm going to quit. As soon as my time's up, I'm going to take everything and go. I'm not going to come back next swing. And he said to me, if it wasn't for the fact that he had all this information in here about what's going on and how it all works, he was able to cobble it all together and make it work for himself. And he was able to show her a few things too, so she ended up staying, which was a bit of a surprise to him and a few other people. But it just goes to show you that if you know how it all works and what's going on, then you've got something to, show the employer, but it also gives you something to cling on to when you get down the hole. Because, you know, it is really random. You know, there's no chance that you're going to get somebody that knows what they're talking about or even cares whether you make it or not. And that's the reality of the situation. And you can see the training, like the ground support side of things, goes into it in great detail, shows you how it all works, what you need to know, how shotcrete works. So there's videos on how it all works. Chemical bolts, cable bolts, all of it. And if we go back to the duties of the miners, so what everybody's got to do. So it goes through in great detail, and it actually goes through what they teach you in the inductions about the duties of employers. So it's straight out of the Mining Act, but it gives you what they want straight out of the Mining Act, but it also lays it out in layman's terms. So did you get all that? What does it all mean? You know, what does practicable mean? You know, how does it all work? And it explains to you in really simple detail about how it works and what ramifications it has on everybody and what the employer has to do. And it's the same thing with the duties of employees, and that's your responsibilities. So this is what they want you to know. And when you typically go for a new job after 6 months, this is one of the things that they'll ask you. You know, what are your duties as an employee? And you've got to know them, and you've got to understand why they think that talking to your cross shift is one of the most important things about your duty of care as an employee. But like I said, the course goes into all that. And this is one of the reasons why, you know, it was written back in the day. It was to fix this problem. This, unfortunately, is a problem that happens every time that we go through a boom where we're, you know, hitting new highs in metals. It was like it when I started back in 94, 95. I've seen it, this will be about the 6th time that I've seen this happen now. And it's the same thing. The reason that there's so many jobs around is because they're going through so many people. And if you want to give it your best shot and to get in, then you need to know as much as you can before you get there. So you're not relying on your buddy to do the right thing by you down the hole, or you're not relying on the fact that, you know, whether they're an idiot or not, or whether they can communicate the correct information to you. Because sometimes people just don't care, or they view you as competition, or any sort of the insane thing that you can think of happens on a mine site, unfortunately, because it's big money and everybody wants to climb the ladder up to the next step. And, you know, that's just the way it is, unfortunately. So I just wanted to go through the prices just to have a quick look, just to show you why there are so many jobs around. Copper at that price in US dollars, that makes it 12,945 Australian, which is insane amount of money for copper at the moment. It's one of the highest prices that I've seen since I've been mining, and it means that, you know, there's every copper mine that's underground at this stage is trying to maximise production, and they're trying to bring more online. They're also trying to sink a few pits around the place to get some easy stuff, but there's not a real lot of easy stuff around anymore, and that goes for nickel as well. And the nickel price is over 25,000 again. It's $26,659 a tonne, which is just a huge price for nickel. And again, that's all because of the batteries. Nickel's a big component in these batteries that they want to put on the walls for the solar panels in everybody's houses, and copper is a big component of that as well. Gold's bounced back. It had a flash crash last week, but it's bounced back up again. It's over 2,400 an ounce, so everybody's making lots of money there. And the big story's been iron ore has pulled back a little bit. By a little bit, I mean probably about $50 or $60 a tonne. So that's coming in at $227 Australian a tonne, which means that they're still making multiples of 4 or 5 times profit. They're just not making 6 or 7 times as much profit. I've seen a couple of articles now about how iron ore is crashing, and the price is still huge. They're still making lots of money. You just need to look at what the Australian government still got it plugged in at $55 a tonne on their budget papers, because they understand that all this is happening because of the boom that they're having with infrastructure and people trying to get things built as quickly as possible. Now that's going to pull back. The iron ore companies were hoping that it'll probably pull back to about 120 and then hold there, but there are people that are predicting that it'll pull back to $80 a tonne. But even at $80 a tonne, everybody's making twice as much. I think the last time I looked at it, BHP and Rio were producing in the 20s, and FMG were producing in the high 30s. So that's a huge amount of profit on this amount of money. So that's all going very well, even though the media will want to tell you that it's all over. Coal has hit another new high. It's gone up. It's $202 a tonne. Now, that means that there's going to be a lot of production ramping up around the place. It'll be interesting to see whether the price holds, because China still isn't buying from Australia. So, for some reason, I believe Australian coal is making it through third parties into China, and that's what's boosting the price up. Everybody's taking their cut. So, it'll be interesting to see how long that goes on for and whether it holds its price or not. I hope you found that information helpful, and the question, like I said, was why is there so much turnover of new starters? And I hope I made it pretty clear in that it's no one single thing. It's a combination of things. It can be a number of different things that can go wrong, and I've seen a lot of people that have had been spat out the other end from no fault of their own, without a job after 2 or 3 months, just because of the way events have conspired against them. It's not unthinkable that if you're helping service crew out and you're still in your first 6 months and the other 2 people have got their full-time and they've got their 3 warning system to work under, that if they make a stupid stuff up, then they'll cop a written warning. But because you as a brand new starter and not finishing your 6 months, if you cop that same written warning, that'll cost you your job. And that unfortunately happens around the place. And it's just stuff like that. And again, the whole reason that we wrote the training was to give you all that information and tell you everything that you should learn in the procedures, but also everything that your buddy should tell you down the hole. And that's the big thing, is knowing how it all operates down there, because what you want to do to make yourself make it, or to get there and be one of the 2 in 5, is that you've got to be able to be left alone to do your job. So to do that, you have to know how all the mine works, and you've got to know what everybody does in the mine. You don't have to break it down each job step by step, but you've got to have a fundamental understanding about what every job does, so you can fit into that workplace, because it is a big workplace and it's constantly moving, and you've got to leave people alone just to get on with their job. You can't be there as a shift boss or as a senior member of crew to babysit somebody. If they're doing that, then you're virtually, it's 2 people doing one job, and that's never going to last long. So again, it is what it is. It's not having a go at anybody, this video, at all. It is, everybody, that works underground does an extremely hard job and tries to do their best, but it can be a challenging work environment, and, people have different breaking points, and it's easy to get spat up and chewed out if you don't know how the system works. And that's fundamentally what we found that was wrong with it, and the way we tried to address it was to put together a training package that would help people. So I hope in a roundabout way, that's answered your question. I know it's a big, long video. Sorry about that. But it's not an easy question to answer, and it's something that's going on constantly. Like all the people that I talk to that get jobs, they're all going into a situation where there's a high turnover of new starters in front of them. And, it freaks people out, and rightly so. But I just keep telling them that, you've done the training, you know what's going on, you know which way's up, you know what to expect, and being, foretold is being forewarned, and that's a big thing in surviving in this game. So if you can share this information around and like the video and like the channel, that would be wonderful. And I hope everybody finds the job that they want and makes it past the 6-month mark. Thanks.